Yes, we do. That's true. Great. Good evening. This is the time and place for the regular meeting of the City of St. Helena Planning Commission for Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to ask Commissioner Lopez, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Lopez. Would you please call us to order, Ms. Guerrero?
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Lopez?
Here.
Commissioner Covell?
Here.
Vice Chair Furtick?
Here.
Chair Warner?
Here. Thank you. Now we are on to the public forum. This is an opportunity for the public to address the Commission on items of interest to the public that are not listed on the agenda. Because of restrictions imposed by the Brown Act, the Commission may not engage in discussion nor take action on matters not described on the agenda. If you do have any public comments, please observe the time limit of 4 minutes. Do we have any member of the public who would like to make general comments? Seeing none, I think we can move on to our consent items. We have only one consent item, and that's the approval of the minutes for January 20th, 26. Anyone have any changes to the minutes or edits or would like to discuss it? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Second by Commissioner Anderson. Call the roll, please.
Vice Chair Furtick?
Yes?
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
I recuse.
Commissioner Covell?
Yes.
And Chair Warner?
Yes. Thank you very much. We have two public hearings tonight. We'll begin with agenda item 5.1. I understand we have a presentation on 5.1. Thank you. Ms.
Senior
DeRosa.
Planner Jackie O'Neill will present the item. Thank you.
One mistake. I wasn't at the last meeting, so I also have to recuse myself. Abstain.
That's fine. Let's note that Commissioner Anderson was not at the last meeting, so we'll have the record reflect that she's recusing herself.
We need somebody else to do the second motion.
Okay, so could we have I believe.
So just for the record, Commissioner Anderson, if you watch the meeting, you are able to vote. No? Okay. We can take a new vote.
Okay, let's take a new vote then. I believe you can second the motion, Commissioner Anderson, even if you weren't at the meeting. It's just that you would probably not vote. Okay, let's take another vote very quickly.
Okay, so Commissioner Anderson was second, and
She can
so who made the
second it.
motion?
I made the motion.
Okay.
Sorry. There we go.
So Commissioner Furtick?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Still yes.
Commissioner Covell?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
I recuse.
And Chair Warner?
Yes. Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, on to our public hearings. First one is agenda item 5.2.
Ms. Jackie O'Neill, Senior Planner, will present the item. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. So the item before you tonight is for the project at 710 Kid Ranch Road. It is for a tentative parcel map, a conditional use permit, and a minor modification to development standards. The parent project number is PL 25011. It's every time.
No, it's not on. It's gotta be green. Then it'll turn green.
Thank you. So the request before you tonight is for approval of a tentative parcel map to subdivide one existing 1.69 acre parcel located at 710 Ken Ranch Road into 2 residential properties. The request also includes a conditional use permit to allow for the creation of a flag lot and a minor modification to allow for a reduced side yard setback for an existing accessory dwelling unit. The condition would be created by the new lot lines for the tentative parcel map. And a little background here, as you may recall, this item was considered by the Planning Commission on May 6th. At that meeting, it was the commission identified that the proposed parcel configuration constituted a flag lot. At that time, the applicants were given direction to come back with their project with the additional request for the conditional use permit and also the minor modification. The minutes for that May 6th meeting are attached to the staff report for review. The analysis and the findings from the May 6th meeting remain unchanged. The staff report that's been put together for you today, the analysis for the tentative parcel map has remained unchanged, but there is additional analysis for the conditional use permit and the minor modification requests. Thank you. So here's an aerial view of the subject parcel, which is highlighted in blue. You can see here that it is at the end of Kid Ranch Road. Kid Ranch Road does terminate right at the beginning of their property line, kind of at the northwesterly corner of their property. And here are a couple site photos that were provided by the applicant. This is from the access drive. So this is looking from Kid Ranch Road up their driveway towards their gate. And what you're seeing here is the existing barn-style ADU, which is located on what would become parcel 2. So here's the existing parcel configuration from the assessor parcel map book. You can see highlighted in green, there's an existing turnaround access easement that's recorded on the property and would remain. Existing development includes a single-family residence, a detached barn-style ADU, a pool, and other on-site improvements. Development is clustered towards the front of the site, and there is existing access from Kid Ranch Road. The proposed configuration would result in 2 parcels. Parcel 1 is highlighted in yellow. This would be 0.68 acres and constitutes a flag lot. So the flag has a flagpole that provides access to parcel 1 off of Kid Ranch Road. And parcel 2 is highlighted in purple. This would be a 1.01 acre parcel. This is where all of the existing development currently is. There's a 20-foot access corridor off of Kid Ranch Road. So this is a 16-foot driveway with landscaping on either side. This has been reviewed and approved by the fire department. No development is proposed with this action, and future development for either parcel would be subject to separate review at the time of submittal. I wanted to include this. This is a close-up of the existing barn and ADU. You can see here maybe the highlight doesn't show up very well, but the property lines are the thick black and dashed lines. So you can see this is the area where the access driveway is. So this is what is often referred to as the flag pole and the existing barn and ADU. And I really just wanted to highlight what this minor modification request is for. The ADU code section requires a minimum 4-foot side and rear yard setback for a new ADU. If someone were to come in to have a ADU conversion, so something from an existing, any kind of existing space. So if it was attached, detached, converted from an accessory structure, you can convert that so long as the setbacks are found to be sufficient for fire and safety. So the 4-foot side and rear setbacks are really applied to new construction. Conversions, we like to see at least a 4-foot. If the existing structure doesn't have that, then so long as fire and buildings say that it meets the health and safety standards, a conversion can be approved as is. So the minor modification here, since it's an existing structure, the ADU conversion's already occurred. Really, we're just looking at what the typical standard setback for an ADU would be, 4 feet. This new lot line creates a setback of 3.5 feet. Again, this has been reviewed by building and fire. There are no health or safety concerns with this configuration. So the entitlements are being reviewed concurrently. They are all tied to one another. The tentative parcel map can't be approved without the conditional use permit and minor modification also being approved. They are in sync with one another. And that conditional use permit is required to create a flag lot, and it applies to the parcel layout only. It doesn't apply to any uses on the site. It's just for the creation of the flag lot. And the minor modification is only to allow for that reduced 3.5 ADU side yard setback. So allowing that existing ADU to encroach into the side yard by 6 inches. And the tentative parcel map, of course, for the subdivision. So I wanted to just spend a little bit of time going into the density calculations for the site. So on the left, we've got the applicable standards. The site is within the general planned land use designation medium density residential. This is also how it is zoned in the zoning code, which requires a minimum density of 5.1 dwelling units per acre. At the very back of the St. Helena Municipal Code, we have our definitions and measurements section. So 17.34.010 has specifics on how we measure fractions. This is a rounding rule, so fractions that are less than half are rounded down, fractions that are more than half are rounded up, and rounding is just applied once at the end of a calculation. So when we look at the new parcels, parcels 1 would be 0.68 acres, and this calculation comes to 3.46 units. The fractional result is the 0.46, so 0.46 is less than 5, less than half, meaning it's rounded down. The minimum density for that site would be 3 dwelling units. Parcel 2, the size would be 1.01 acres. Following that calculation, it's 5.18 with a fractional result of 0.18. Minimum density for that site is 5. I do want to just note that with the existing parcel, the 1.69 acre parcel, when you do the density calculation, this comes out to a minimum density of 9 units. Because we have this specific codified way to measure fractions, in this particular case, the way that the math comes out, it goes on the entirety of the parcel, it would be 8 point something over the fractional result that would round it up to 9. But with the way that the math goes here, we end up with 8 units over both of the parcels. Reading through the general plan implements density through the land use designation, and that's a parcel-specific density standard. The policies of the general plan do not require preservation of pre-subdivision density yields, and they do not require density aggregation across all of the parcels. So in other words, we're looking at each specific parcel as to whether or not it remains capable of supporting the medium density zoning requirements, including density. So there's no specifics in the general plan that says if the overall parcel was 9 and the 2 parcels, because of this math, become 8, that you can't do that. We're really looking at parcel specific things. And we did have a conversation with the city attorney to confirm that this is the correct legal approach. For the zoning consistency, all of the medium density zoning district standards are met, with the exception of the minor modification, which is requested for that encroachment, and the conditional use permit for the flag lot. And as stated earlier, no new development is proposed. Today we are simply looking at the subdivision of the real property. All of the findings are provided in your staff report and also in the attached resolution, but just to briefly go over them, the CEQA finding for this is class 15. This is our typical CEQA exemption for subdivisions. So this is for minor land divisions with slopes under 20% and where there's no unusual circumstances identified and services and access are available. For the conditional use permit, for the creation of the flag lot, it's consistent with the general plan and the applicable housing and land use policies. It is allowed in the MR district with the approval of a CUP. It meets the flag lot standards, and it is not materially detrimental, as they're only approving a configuration and it's not changing the use on the site. For the minor modification, this is created strictly by the new parcel lines. It's the minimum relief that is needed to, they've requested the minimum relief so that they can have approval of their project. It would not create aesthetic or functional impacts, and it does remain consistent with the purposes of the zoning code and district. And like I said, really for ADUs, the setbacks are primarily related to health safety. And for the tentative parcel map, the subdivision's consistent with the 2040 general plan land use designation, as well as the MR zoning district development standards. Any future development would be subject to all applicable design, zoning, and building standards at the time of submittal, which would include energy efficiency and passive heating and cooling considerations. So with that, the recommendation from staff is that the Planning Commission determine that the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to guideline section 15.315 and accept the attached resolution approving the conditional use permit, minor modification, and tentative parcel map subject to the conditions of approval. I'm available for questions, and we also have BBK as well as the applicants here this evening.
Do we have any, have any questions for staff on the presentation?
I have one question. So on parcel 2, there are currently 2 units, correct? The main house and the ADU?
Yes,
And
that's
so
correct.
if they were to do, anything additional on that parcel, they would be required to put a minimum of 5 units?
That's correct. New development would be required to meet the minimum density. However, the subdivision can go forward even though
Correct,
The
because they're
existing-
not proposing any new
Correct.
development.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And actually, in a former conversation I had with the city attorney much earlier on in the project, they're not prohibited from doing an addition or a remodel to the property as long as it meets the current, development standards. But the demolition of anything on there would trigger, a full meeting the density. But if they go, we want to do a pop out here, that's acceptable without triggering the density requirements.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. Perfect. That was my only question.
I have a question. If the general plan compatibility requires advancing outcomes rather than speculative future development, what prevents parcelization from being used to avoid real minimum density outcomes?
That might be a question for the city attorney.
Can you repeat that slowly?
If general plan compatibility requires advancing outcomes rather than speculative future development, what prevents the parcelization from being used to avoid minimum density outcomes?
So the parcelization of this property is allowed under the Subdivision Map Act. There's no changes to the zoning or the general plan. The density is still the density requirements, both before and after. The fact that we've created two parcels, it's still subject to the same density requirements that your zoning code requires currently.
The subdivision is consistent with the general plan only if it is compatible with the objectives and policies of the plan. That's from the Subdivision Map Act.
Correct. And staff gave the staff report saying that this project is consistent with the general plan and the zoning.
Even though there's a net loss of housing from like the minimum. How is that compatible
The concept
with our
that there
goals?
is a net loss is speculative at best. That's a minimum standard. There's a minimum and a maximum threshold for these lots. So there's nothing to stop them from building beyond the minimum. There's also density bonus law, which I'm sure the commission is very familiar with, that could create even higher densities on these lots. As to a fraction, this is the way that the code has said we deal with fractions. It's a on paper potential loss, but I don't know that there's anything within the general plan or the zoning that would prohibit the subdivision of the property on the face of it itself.
Even though the Subdivision Map Act allows consideration for foreseeable outcomes?
But we don't know the foreseeable outcomes. We also could just as easily foresee that there is an increase in density because now you're taking and parcelizing underutilized land of a single family home and allowing more units to be built on there versus allowing the property to stay as a single family residence. At the end of the day, this parcel will be developed in accordance with the zoning and general plan. There's a minimum and a maximum density, but there's also state laws that could increase that density beyond the minimum thresholds.
I have a question I'd like to interject.
I want to make sure Commissioner Anderson has had her question answered, then you can ask your question.
My questions are answered, but I think it's reasonable to conclude that parcelization is being used to avoid meeting minimum density obligations, considering the fact that the applicant had submitted an application January of last year, and the project didn't meet the zoning code requirements of the parcel as a whole. So this subdivision is being used to divide the parcel so that they don't have to meet the requirements.
Do we have any further response from our attorney on that point? Again, it gets a little bit to motivation or to result, but I think it's a fair question. Any further response on intent? Again, we're not at a point where anything is being built, but I think the question's a legitimate question as to whether the result of this parcelization, whether motivated by that or not, has that effect. Any comment from our attorney on that?
I don't know as to what project is being proposed by the applicant that may come before the commission. Projects change frequently, so I can't really opine as to whether or not there is actual intent to diminish the intensity of the number of units on this. I don't have further information on that. I apologize.
But that issue could come back before the commission when there is a specific.
No, it can't
Point of
because-
order, point of order. I would like to call whether or not this is an agendized item, or are we just reviewing the motion before us? Point of order.
We're answering questions from
This
Commissioner
was,
Anderson.
when I brought up ideas outside of the agendized item, the staff report, it was said to me that this is not an agendized item and we do not talk about policy. We are only allowed to talk about the motion before us. And I would like to put up the motion before us.
I'm going to reject your point of order because any commissioner has an opportunity to ask questions. of
I
their
don't
attorneys,
think as a
so-
commissioner you can reject my point of order. I think that would be up to the legal counsel on.
No, it's up to me. So again,
Point of order, is that correct, legal counsel?
The chair runs the meeting, and he's correct that these are simply questions at this point. If a discussion goes down the path, then I would agree with you that it is an item off the agenda. So at this point in time, the questions, I believe, are within the confines of the Brown Act, but the chair does run the meeting.
thank you. I want to further make sure Commissioner Anderson has fully had her chance to have staff answer questions. Attorney, okay, Commissioner Covell, you had some questions?
Okay. We've had meetings where items off the agendized topic was not discussed and policy was not discussed. What's before us today is a tentative map parcel. The clients, or sorry, the owners, the applicants, sorry, the applicants have applied, and I've watched the January 21 meeting. I did not watch the May
Do you
1.
have questions for staff?
Please do not interrupt me, Chair Warner. We've talked about this. As long as I'm not violating the Brown Act, you said you would not interrupt me.
Go ahead. We already ruled on your point of order, but go ahead if you have further points to make.
I think we should review this agendized item based off the staff recommendation and the policy that is put forth. We're not supposed to talk about policy unless the city council directs us to. That is what you've told me. Right now, I find objection to the conversation because this is a policy item that I think other people might want to talk about. But it's not pertaining to this project. The project before us is that they're subdividing. As the legal counsel has said, the project, we don't know. They might add minimum 6 units. We don't know. We cannot speculate. And this is costing them money. So my request right now is that we review this based off the staff report and the motions in front of us. And if there are items outside of the agendized item, great. But I feel very much like, one, we've had conversations and I'm not allowed to talk about policy, and yet here you allow it. And I'm drawing attention to it. Thank you.
I've already ruled on the point of order, but you certainly have an opportunity to ask questions to staff on the matter. Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions
Okay.
for staff. I just have questions for this conversation that's happening.
Again, we've already ruled on your point of order. Commissioner Anderson has asked her questions and has answered. Do we have any other commissioners who have questions for staff on the presentation? Go ahead, Commissioner Lopez.
I try to look at it, but the way I'm seeing it, I have a flag lot that I own, and it seems like it has to be specific, and I do see the restraints with an existing building to be able to subdivide it. I'm not quite clear in that flag lot, are both properties entering, does the vehicles enter for both properties through that 50-foot.
Ask staff, Commissioner Lopez.
Is that kind of what's happening there?
Yes, so they would have a shared driveway off of off of Kid Ranch, so the existing access, but the flagpole portion that provides the driveway access to the rear parcel is all entirely included in parcel 1.
Yes, okay. So in other words, because that's kind of like mine, I had to give easement for the back person to go in. And as I understand it, you can't use that 50-foot easement you can't encroach more if we approve this restraint already being 3.5 rather than 4 set off the ADU. If there is future construction, I don't think, if I'm understanding it right, that the development would have to be on the buildable part, but not the shared easement, right?
That's correct. So the flagpole portion of Lot 1 is not considered buildable area. The only buildable area of the proposed parcel 1 would be in the rear part of the parcel, the flag of it.
And you said the fire department approved with the encroachment of the small portion, that they're still safe for both?
Yes, there's still enough access width for fire apparatus and to meet the subdivision requirements. Now, when development comes in, that specific proposal will be reviewed, because sometimes if there's a higher density proposal, fire wants additional access requirements. So depending on what the application comes in, when the application comes in, and the codes and requirements at that time, that will determine whether or not that flag pole access is sufficient and adequate for the proposed development. But for the purposes of the tentative parcel map, the access meets the code requirements.
That's it.
Other questions for staff before we open it up for public comment? Seeing none, we'll go to the opportunities for any public comment on this application. Is there any public comment from anyone in the audience? Seeing none, we can close the public hearing and come back to commission consideration and discussion of this item. Any further discussion of this item? If not, I would entertain a...
I'll just say that I want to acknowledge the applicants for their patience and willingness to receive some of the feedback from the commission and from the staff. I know it's been a long process. So I appreciate you being here again today. I want to acknowledge Commissioner Anderson. I think that was also an insightful question, and I think very relevant to the parcel map issue. And those are my 2 comments.
Any other comments from commissioners? I have one last comment too, but...
Yeah, I mean, I'm a builder, so I kind of try to look at it with what's existing and the subdividing issue. And, I think it's a doable split. You've worked hard on it, and you're dealing with parameters like you have been struggling with, and you came up with something. As you build in the portion buildable, obviously that's going to, I think it's going to be safe enough to build in. So I'm very happy with what you've done, and I know it's frustrating, but we gotta always look at all the angles in future development. But I'm very satisfied with kind of what you brought up and why, and these restraints, and that the fire department kind of looked at those things for a flag lot. So so far,
Other final comments? I have one last comment. I also share with Commissioners Furtick and Lopez appreciation for your patience. I know back in May, it was not easy for you, and I'm very appreciative that we've now reached at least this milestone and can go forward from here. So any other comments before I entertain a motion?
Sorry, I apologize for getting angry. I do come with an open mind today. I'm glad there is a resolution for you. I watched the January 21 meeting, and I understand your frustration. I hope that you still enjoy living in Santa Elena after all of this and can find some joy in all of this, even though I know it's very difficult. But I hope you all the best for this project.
With that, I'm open to entertaining a motion.
I motion to approve the 2 items as recommended by staff.
Yeah, could you read the?
One, well, I would have to do this. Determined that the project is exempt from the California's Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, pursuant to the CEQA guidelines, section 15.315, and 2, accept the required findings and adopt the attached resolution approving the conditional use permit CUP 25-001 minor modification MM 25002 and tentative map parcel TPM 25001 subject to the conditions of approval.
Do we have a second?
I second.
I'll call the roll, please, Ms. Carrero.
Commissioner Covell?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
No.
Vice Chair Burdick?
Yes.
And Chair Warner?
Yes. That's 5.1. We're on to agenda item 5.2. I think we have a presentation on that as well.
If there's any way we can have these presentations put online before, that would be great.
The first I apologize. This presentation was published. The first one did not get chance to upload it online, but I will after this meeting. We do have copies if you want to take a look.
It would just be helpful before the meeting. Yeah.
Sure. If there's time to upload them, they will get uploaded.
Thank you.
And we do have the staff report ahead of time. Yep.
All right, good evening, Planning Commissioners, Chair Warner. This item involves the Sutter Home Winery at 100 Main Street. Many of you are familiar with it as it hugs our southern border, and this aerial just shows the 2 parcels involved in the request, and I don't have my pointer with me, but Main Street flanks the red parcel there that you can see dividing more on the left side of the screen. This is all in the winery district. So when we adopted the new zoning code in 2023, we realized this was an area that would be helpful to large users to be able to have a way to officially document their baseline conditions. So when there are future expansions, it helps us navigate the degree of that intensity. So their request is to obtain the CLN to document all the improvements that they've made on the site to date and all the associated activities. And this will, again, just help us as we navigate future applications and evaluating them on a case-by-case basis. And the code section where all this is found is 1709030F. So there's been a winery in operation on this site since at least 1968. The total parcel size is about 76 acres. In addition to a fairly intense industrial operation, there's multiple acres of vineyard included in this request. And the we basically, because the change in the code that happened in 1979 that required wineries to have conditional uses, and because this was operating that way before the code change, we call it a legal non-conforming use. And so we would need any future expansion would need approval of a use permit. Oh my, let's see. We're way ahead. I think we are right here. Okay. And of course, all this documentation and background is in your staff report, but there were 2 items that came to Planning Commission that we have on record. One was in April of 2003. There was a design review approval for a wine processing spinning cone building, and then also more recently in 2016, Sutter Home applied for a demolition permit and a design review approval, which involved decommissioning 4 tanks. They relocated 102 wine storage tanks, constructed 2 new freestanding canopies, and they also renovated a multi-purpose structure. This was provided by the applicant. This is one of many exhibits in your staff report packet that show you in the small writing that you see, those are actually building permit numbers that were, or building permit that were issued to the various buildings, tanks along the way, and we have record of all of those. So yeah, I would say the entirety of the operation includes everything from your tank farms to truck scales, the vineyard, as I mentioned earlier, there's offices and accessory uses. So that was the core of this work effort, was documenting the existing uses and activities. And I really appreciate the Sutter Home team for submitting a lot of information to us, so we had a really full and complete file, and some of that information includes, again, which is all documented in your staff report, is the number of employees, their vehicle trips, the number of their special events in a year, crush capacity, fermentation capacity, their extent of their filtering and blending of wine, their bottling lines, which bottle a little over 22 million gallons of wine per day. Their winery uses include processing, storage and aging of wine, shipping, receiving, and storage of related materials, distilling of wine and storage of spirits, and also the storage and use of chemicals. But there's still more. There's processing wastewater ponds, treatment systems, a lot of parking on the site. They have a water system that connects both to the city's water supply and groundwater wells, a number of accessory uses, many structures and improvements which you were seeing on that prior site plan, and attachments 1 through 17 provide the supporting documentation. So that brings me to the conclusion of my staff report, and the 2 recommendations are on your screen for your consideration, and that concludes my presentation. And as I mentioned, we have the Sutter Home team here, should you have any specific questions about their operations as well, to supplement my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. DeRosa. Do we have questions for staff from commissioners before we open up for public comment and hearings? Any? Seeing none, I think we can open up for the public hearings. Do we have any public comments from the public on this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back for discussion by the full commission. Thoughts, discussion, comments?
Seems thorough and straightforward, and like a lot of work compiling a lot of information. So it makes sense to do that now. And really no questions.
On a side note, one of my first projects when I arrived here in 2020 was they handed me, remember this? the handoff from Noah Hosch. Oh, welcome to St. Helena. Here's your binders, and we need to have all this documented. I'm like, oh my goodness, what did I sign up for? So, and it was just a clunky way because we didn't really have a clear way, but Napa County has a wonderful model of doing this. And so we used their model that's in their municipal code and put that in our code to say, oh yeah, this has really good checks and balances. So they were patient to wait until we had the code update done to come and officially apply for this. This is our first one.
Oh, great. I guess my only other question is, are there other wineries, that also date back far that need to go through this process? And should we, advise them? We don't have to make them, obviously, but we can recommend that they do that and use Sutter Home as an example of, so they.
Yeah.
A winery that's done it thoroughly. So obviously that certainly helps if they want to initiate any development down the road to have this under their belt. And knowing that it's been done by someone, a peer helps.
Yeah, and it can be used beyond wineries. Large industrial uses such as Shamrock that have changed hands over the way is another great opportunity, to utilize this. So yes, I can make a note.
And we just know that,
file.
some of that institutional knowledge, and now that there's, and there are a lot of wineries that are selling. There are a lot of wineries that, are, so that institutional knowledge gets lost, so if you can establish that institutional knowledge and documentation, it's really helpful as businesses go from hand to hand and owner
Other
to
comments
owner.
from commissioners? I will have one comment.
I have one too. So I was 10 years old when you guys started, and I'm 57. And I got to say, Sutter Winery has been a great participant to the community. I think my coach from football used to race his car, and he did a non-alcoholic Sutter Home Wine or things. But they've always been involved with the community. Very impressed by how you put the numbers together as it's grown, as I've grown. I guess one question would be, because you see during your peak times how much you need in manpower and parking, and as I'm thinking about other wineries as people need to come in and out, right? I'd always warn people coming in the morning, boy, leave yourself some extra time because there's only one lane coming in. But I see that there's also part that says housing and all this other parts. And as you think of expanding, maybe it's going to be the wineries that'll find a way to obviously be able to house during peak hours, peak crush times and harvest times, right? But very, very proud of Sutter. As some other older wineries, that they've grown responsibly and participated and made this town what it is. So I just wanted to thank you for putting these numbers together that I've never seen before. Maybe others will follow your lead. It's pretty amazing.
Other comments? I have one comment that's somewhat similar. I did skim through all the attachments. And I think what's very valuable here, and I have to compliment both the staff and the applicant, because this is what we'd call somewhat of a forensic exercise to assemble all these documents, and they're very important because now they're in the record. Now they're basically something that not only you can rely on in terms of this commission's resolution if we adopt it, but also it's part of the record. And as Commissioner Furdak said, one of the things that's often neglected or not focused on as a priority by governmental bodies is maintaining a clear record of these types of very important documents. And so I do want to compliment both staff and the applicant for assembling these. This is the first one. It may not be the last one, but I think the benefit notwithstanding that I wasn't born when Hector Lopez was 10 years old. Just kidding. But that notwithstanding that, the ability to go back and assemble these documents, this documentation, staff putting it together in a coherent fashion, I just want to compliment both of you. If we have no other comments, I'd like to move to entertaining a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the two recommendations by the staff to find that the project is exempt from CEQA sections 15061B3 and to adopt a resolution approving the certificate of extent of legal nonconforming use for Sutter Home Winery, Inc. in order to formally establish the legally permitted use and activities related to the winery operations located at 100 Main Street in the winery zoning district.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Ms. Guerrera, could you call the roll?
Vice Chair Furtick,
Yes?
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Covell,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
and Chair Warner.
Yes. Very good. That leads us to number 6, scheduled matters. Anything from staff on scheduled matters? Or number 7, we might be able to do both at the same time. I know we have a department report to discuss. If we have seeing no scheduled matters, should we go to item 7, department report?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
I think 7.1 is the planning applications annual report.
All right. So in your packet, as I usually do in January or February, thank you, Ms. Gamera, also for running the statistics. And it was a little bit more challenging this year because now that we have e-track a lot more navigation, but I think it'll get easier hopefully every year. But I'll start before she puts the table. Oh, there we go. It's up there. But just as in the cover memo, I'll just highlight the key accomplishments for 2025, which included, and some of these things the Planning Commission actually didn't see, but these were department accomplishments. We released a notice of availability for the sale of Adams Street as surplus properties. As you know, most of you all participated in the annual governance training. We had our recruitment of our assistant planner completed. We launched the online software Track It, went live in September. We approved ministerially the Fountain Street Workforce Housing Project. We also approved the St. Helena Community Church. That was a discretionary action. A very large project, we processed the Fortunate Son Winery expansion at 825 Fulton. We had a zoning code study session at the end of the year. We, as staff, authorized the 5-year extension of the Farmstead DA, so the project could still move forward with keeping their entitlements. We have secured a contract with an EIR consultant to move forward EIR for the Adams Street Hotel. And as you know, we had a joint meeting with the council this summer to have a state housing laws committee meeting to inform our community. So some unique things mixed in there with some pretty great projects. And then moving to our, gosh, that sure looks small on the screen. Sorry about that. You might want to look at your iPad. But just highlighting, we approved a total of 46 applications. In 2024, there were 55. But we increased our planning commission applications. We did 23 versus the year before there were 13. Our administrative projects this year were 23 that we approved. The prior year there were 42. And looking at the total number of applications that came in, there were 63 this year, and last year there were 84. And if you'd like going forward, we can set the template just to have the next year in there across the board. For some reason, I thought maybe we did that every year, but I kind of like to just have a comparison.
Yes, if we can make that standard to have a year-over-year comparison, that would be great.
Okay, we'll just start kind of expanding out. Yeah, we can certainly do that. But yeah, thanks to the great staff for helping us carry through a very busy 2025. And obviously, we still have a lot of projects in the hopper that are yet to come to the commission or that are in front of the city council now that the commission spent some time on. If there's not any questions, that's all I had to share on that.
Very good. And again, great work by staff and all the other departments of the city that have supported the Planning Commission. And it's a great summary. And I like the year-over-year type of comparison because it really provides us kind of a good comparison. So if no other comments or questions on the annual report, we can go to agenda forecast. I had a question that I know that I would like to get some update on. But first, any other agenda forecast items other than the question that I'm going to ask?
No, Chair Warner, go ahead.
We.
Sorry, was that just to staff or was that for everybody?
It's for staff. Why don't you listen to my question? It maybe help you on what might be a similar question. But then again, anybody can ask questions on agenda forecast. I'd like to get a sense of when we can expect the zoning code update staff recommendations. I had anticipated something maybe by the end of first quarter for us to dive into, but and we do have a new interim director who will bear the burden along with staff of generating this. But any sense, Ms. DeRosa, of timing for that zoning code update, next review and recommendations?
I think that's doable. I have that in my knowledge transfer binder for Mr. McCann, who will be our incoming interim director, that, and also talk to our assistant planner about the timing, because she'll be the one compiling the staff report, and we have most of the attachments ready. So I think just looking at how full the agendas are, but by I think the end of March is what I put in my notes to him to plan to take that back to the Planning Commission for a discussion and debriefing of all the public comments that were received.
Very good. My second question has to do with the annual review of the general plan, and I note that's generally in January, but not restricted to January. But do you have a sense of when we might be able to tee up the general review? And as you know, that's 1706-070. It's part of the amendments to the general plan section of the ordinance, which basically states that the city council finds that the community is best served by having a general plan that is stable, widely understood and accepted, which I think, based on also the other sections, means we don't willy-nilly come in with amendments to the general plan. But I think the annual review is a good thing to do. Do you have a sense of how we might do that? My sense, frankly, and I've gone through the general plan again, implementation recommendations by implementation recommendations. My sense is that it's useful because we don't have expertise in the zoning and the planning commission on several aspects of the general plan. One thing I might suggest, subject to interim director McCann and the staff coming back with recommendations, and also for us as commissioners, is that aspects of the general plan that are really within the expertise of other departments of the city, I would recommend that one aspect of developing our review be that the planning staff basically go to the other departments of the city that have responsibility for those aspects of the general plan and ask them for their review, what they recommend, if anything needs to be reviewed. And then that can be brought back to us. And we also, as commissioners, have our own ability to go through the general plan, meld together what staff recommends in terms of that review, and then also what we as commissioners recommend, if anything, that would go in final to the city council. But timing, obviously, is something that needs to be considered, because we do not want to basically overburden staff. We have a transition we're about to go through, a happy transition. So I just like to throw out, do you have any sense of timing for that type of approach to the general plan review?
Yeah, well, and just, it is going to be a big lift for staff because we haven't, although we've done the climate action and of course the housing element sections and been tracking implementation on that, the other remaining elements, we have not done that yet. So it will take interdepartment coordination to get updates on a number of the infrastructure implementation actions, circulation, and so forth, and also parks and recreation, open space. So I don't take the task lightly of what is going to require of staff in terms of hours. So I do think pushing it towards like third quarter, the end of third quarter, would be more doable. And of course, staff knows that their first and primary duties are to respond to the time-sensitive applications, permit streamlining, act requirements. But as time allows, and again with the interim director probably, and hopefully into the permanent director, they can probably provide you more regular updates on how the progress of that is coming along.
I think that's doable. I also want to recommend to my fellow commissioners, and I think Commissioner Covell has already spent some time getting ahead on these issues, but I think each of us as commissioners, we have access to the general plan. We have, some of us actually participated in the development and approval of the housing element as well as the safety element. We also have the benefit of the general plan and the housing element and the safety element and the other documents that distinguish very clearly between implementation items, which are fairly objective in some cases they're subjective and not really kind of something that needs to have a schedule, as well as the policies. And I think it's very good for each of us to do our homework and review those aspects of the general plan, because some of the things that we as commissioners can do is also assist staff in our positions and our evaluation of the general plan to feed into this annual review. With that, I want to open up, does that schedule and approach sound appropriate for my fellow commissioners and for staff?
Yes, I'm really struggling with the practicality of it. And when I look and consider at, reviewing the general plan, and I look at, and I watch all the city council meetings, I'm sure a lot of us do, and we know that our staff, our city staff across the board is, we've cut city staff. We are trying to accomplish a lot of things in this town. I rather see more action that like really deliver on, deliver on things. And we are stretching our staff across the city so much, and we are demanding so much that personally, I frankly, unless there are glaring red flags that people rise up on the general plan, to me, that's kind of the least important thing. Like, why are we pulling our stretched staff to, again, if something really rises up, as this is an issue and in true, conflict, but to edit, for our satisfaction when there are some, I can live with some ambiguity.
All right, let me respond to that, because I think there's a happy medium here. And again, if you look at the section that has this annual review, it's part of an overall section that says exactly what you say.
I'd rather change that part of the general plan.
Which is basically that, I understand, but that section about the annual review is subject to the overall purpose of amendments to the general plan, which makes clear that we do not, the city council does not intend that the general plan be amended very often. It needs consistency and constancy, and the language is very clear in 1706-010 that the general plan is not to be amended lightly or with a lot of intensity unless something sticks out. On the other hand, there have been certain developments in terms of state law since the general plan was adopted. And again, I think my reading of the intent of the annual review is, unfortunately, maybe for the burden on staff, but is for our expert staff to basically stand back, take a take a little bit of look. I don't think it requires a huge amount of burden because the general plan has specific implementation items, some of which are clearly objective, which are do this by this date. And it's useful to kind of get an update on where those are. Other of them are what our legal counsel, our attorney says are subjective, and therefore
Sure.
would not be something that.
Certainly things like the housing element, we need to report on,
Right,
obviously,
right.
every year.
That's our-
And I do think it's important that we consider updates to the zoning code, because that has a practical application in real life to both, practitioners and to, whether it's homeowners or whether it's business owners. Those, I think, are important. But to deal with minor ambiguities, for example, I just want to convey that I don't see that as the priority.
Right. Very, very good. Other comments? I know, Commissioner Cavell, you have really kind of initiated being sure that we cover this. Thoughts on schedule and on scope?
I have a question for legal counsel. The zoning code section that is for the annual review of the general plan. I'd like to understand better because my understanding right now is that Chair Warner is asking staff to do work on it, and also he is discussing a type of approach, which is it's an approach on his suggestion, not based on the code. So I would like to understand clearly what the code is asking us, because my understanding of that section of the code where it says general plan, it's annual review. I don't want to quote, I think it's 1706-030, but I'm not sure.
1706-070, which is
070.
part of Chapter 1706, including 1706-010, which is the purpose. So you need to review it in context. But go ahead and ask your question to our attorney if there is a question.
If there is a question, there is a question, I ask. What is her interpretation of 1706-070 annual review? At least once a year, generally in January, the Planning Commission shall conduct a comprehensive review of the general plan, map, and text and report its findings to the City Council. I don't see that particular 070 annual review requiring staff to do it, and to Commissioner Furtick's comment that staff is already overloaded with a ton of things. So my question is just understanding from a legal point of view who is supposed to provide the comprehensive review to City Council.
Generally speaking, and I am not familiar of the inner workings of how your city and staff work, but generally speaking, the staff would prepare a staff report that would give the Planning Commission the ability to conduct this review. Planning Commission typically does not undertake a review without the support of city staff.
That's the normal approach on all the code provisions we have that designate to the Planning Commission a particular statutory role or ordinance role. We always use staff to provide support to the Planning Commission for fulfilling its obligations that are in the code.
Sorry, legal counsel. I don't know your name.
My name is Kylie.
Kylie, legal counsel Kylie. When you say generally speaking and not knowing our particular process, what does the legal section in 070 say?
Staff always provides support to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission could decide, for example, we would like to do a deeper dive. Let's appoint an ad hoc. There's nothing that would stop that from occurring, but staff always prepares a staff report that gives the Planning Commission the structure and the guidance of staff's experience and expertise.
Is that based off the direction from City Council? Or that's just in the municipal code or some sort of policy somewhere.
That the way city government works, as you rightly know, the city council is the one that sets policy for the entire city. The planning commission and other commissions help support that. And underlying all of that is city staff that takes that direction and policy and helps provide guidance and uses their expertise, their knowledge, and provides the legwork for all of that to occur.
And in the current planning commission handbook by I think it's the ILC, it says something different. This is the handbook given to us. So perhaps we're off agenda.
What does the handbook say that you say is different from staff providing its support as it normally does in state government and does in St. Helena? What does the handbook say that you're citing?
I can pull it up if you would like me to go through it.
You're asserting that it says something different, and I'd like the record to reflect exactly what you're asking city attorney that you state is different from what the city attorney just advised us.
In the planning commission handbook, it does not ask for staff report.
Again,
I think, Commissioner Cavell, you seem to be taking a stand that no one else agrees with. You asked our city attorney a question. She provided an answer. Director DeRosa is sitting there nodding her head. Yes, that is her understanding of how many years, Director DeRosa, have you been in city government?
34 years.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot. You don't look like you could be in city government for 34 years. But that is my understanding of how it works too. I don't know if I need to take a poll, but I think you're being given the information that you legitimately ask a question, you're being given the response, and you keep arguing the response.
I've asked for an example. I sent an email to staff for an example of the previous annual reports, and I have not received one yet.
we have not conducted an annual report. By the way, I compliment you for identifying that we, if I'm correct, have not conducted an annual report since this ordinance was adopted in October 2023 as part of the zoning code update. So we would have done probably one in early 25 because that would have represented a full year under that provision. We didn't do one in 25. Now we're doing one in 26 to reflect the annual review. And all we're discussing today is an agenda forecast in terms of how we do it and what staff's role would be, which I agree we don't want to overburden staff, but I also agree with, I think, what we've all heard, which is the staff is essential to provide support to the Planning Commission on an effort like this. And again, pursuant to Commissioner Furdeck's comment, you seem to disagree and expect the Commission to do it on its own. I strongly disagree. We need staff support on this.
If I can respond, you said that section of the code was not in the code before 2023. I've spoken to previous commissioners from 10 years ago, and they recall this annual review. I just want to double check that. If you're right, that would be great.
And what would be the point of making a point that it wasn't done in the past?
I'm not making the point. He's making the point that it
can
was
we
not.
move forward?
I'm trying to understand if there was one, and my understanding there was one. So I'd like to see it. That's what I've heard from
Fair
previous-
enough. If there was one in the past, we should all be
It should
able
be an
to see
example.
that.
Agree. I haven't seen one.
I can do some research on the prior zoning code that existed prior to the 2023 adoption of our current iteration of the zoning code and identify if we had a requirement for such a review, and then go from there and see if I can locate records of when a review may have been done if there was a requirement in the past and report back to the planning commission.
That would be great.
And
I
also
appreciate that.
on the code itself, it has the adoption of the provision, the date of the adoption of the provision. That was the basis of my 2023. That said, we can go look for that. But again, Commissioner Furdeck, I agree with. What's the point of that? Our discussion is agenda forecasting. And I'm suggesting that we have support from staff for this particular task. And I'm asking if fellow commissioners agree with that, as well as the potential schedule, given that we do not want to overburden staff. So any other comments on the schedule or the scope?
I just want to say that the time I've been here with the changes and the new general plan, I think we've been weeding out. I think staff has done a great amount of work on bringing up these discrepancies and stuff that doesn't quite match up. And we've been working hard on it before you came on. It just hasn't been in a report, and that's something we could try to achieve. But I think that these collisions come up as projects come up, that maybe the wording isn't right or has two ways. But I seriously think we've been working on it since the new changes. Now, in the past, I also think that the Planning Commission had a lot more, I wouldn't say power, but they had more room to work with, but restraints have come down, and that's limited us. So I tend to think, yeah, we do need to work forward, but let's work with what we got. And people, we can work towards doing these reports and seeing what we could weed out that's really important, and we take it in priority like we do with any job, right? You're not going to go trying to build something that isn't important. And same with you. You're not going to draw something up that isn't as important as the detail to the structure. But I think we've been doing that, and I look forward to.
But you agree we should have support from staff?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I would like to just say that I really like the general plan. I really like it. I've been reading it and highlighting it and underlining it. I don't particularly have anything that I want to change out of it. I would just like to give an annual report, kind of based off of my observations as a planning commissioner, as what I see this 070 says. And from what I can understand from the planning commissioning and handbook, I don't want anybody to have any preconceived notions that I have any sort of desire to change the general plan. I have not actually found any holes in the general plan. But what is interesting is the zoning code is the general plan is holds supremacy over the zoning code, and if there are any issues with the zoning code, then the zoning code should be in good faith corrected to align with the general plan. That's what it says in that 1706 section. And this is partly why I think when we are doing our zoning code workshops, and how we just did one on December 16th, and we asked how the zoning code is working for us, it's really not looking at just the zoning code in isolation, but understanding it and how it complies with the general plan. And that, I think, is worthwhile because the consultant who was hired to rewrite the zoning code, there were things, as we are noticing right now, that don't align.
We'll have a chance to discuss zoning code updates separately, and that's something that I think staff has pledged to bring back to us. And to the extent that the zoning code update has already been determined to be consistent with the general plan, but we identify things that we might see that need to be changed, we'll have an opportunity to discuss that. All we're discussing right now, we've already talked about
future agenda items, and I understand. On your future agenda item, you have requested, if I'm correct, please correct me if I'm wrong, you requested to ask staff to compile the zoning, the public comments and talk about it. I would like to add that I think when we had that workshop, many people said this is a great start, and we should have more workshops. And so I would like to ask when in the next future agendas we will have more public workshops for the zoning code.
Well, that's something we can discuss. I'm not willing to burden staff with another workshop with recommendations. We have lots of recommendations on the record. I'd like to see staff come back. We're switching, by the way, now from the general plan review to the zoning code update. I'd like to see staff come back and assemble what were the comments in the zoning code update session, along with the staff's own comments, as well as any that we would add ourselves, and have that discussion. And that would be a public discussion, by the way, where members of the public could participate and provide comments on that staff report at that time. I'd like to do that, recommend that, before we go and have another public workshop without having the benefit of staff's compilation and recommendations.
Chair Warner, can I make
Sure.
2 suggestions? On the general plan, would it be okay, for example, so if staff is going to look at that later in the year, would it be okay at any time or throughout the year for any of the commissioners to share with staff any observations in the general plan for their input at the time when they do compile, a report? But, can commissioners individually
Yes.
provide input? So Commissioner Covell, because you've done a lot of work in reviewing and evaluating, and you may have some insights or comments or perspectives that you would like to share for their consideration. And I think it would be good for you to get that kind of off your chest. Or like for me, I'd like to, it's like my Post-it notes. I'd like to get that off my desk. So, if there were an opportunity for you to share all that work that you've put into it now, and they can put that in, and use that as they evaluate later.
As long as an individual commissioner wants to provide input directly to the staff on this effort, that's absolutely true. In fact, I've gone through the housing element line by line recently, and I have annotated versions of what's a subjective portion of that housing element that really is not binding on the commission, because we can only comply with objective standards, and what are objective standards that are in the housing element. And I intend to provide that to staff, and any of you all have an opportunity, including Commissioner Covell, provide your input directly to staff as they prepare the general plan review. I think that's absolutely
I think that
helpful.
would be great. So that's one suggestion, and hopefully that gives Commissioner Covell an opportunity to share, some of the work that she's put into it. My second one would be, when staff comes back to us at the end of the quarter with a summary of what all the input has been from the first workshop on the zoning code, I'm hoping also, and let me know if this is a reasonable request, it may be something you already plan to do, with like prioritizing what you think the most important maybe updates might be, to take to the city council in terms of, updates and changes and reconciliation and things like that. So I'm hoping we can see what that looks like as well. So it's not just kind of a data dump, but it's also recommendations on what needs, on priorities for updates and changes, sooner than later.
Which, of course, we as commissioners can evaluate and say, we think this should be more of a priority than others. But I think it's
Yes.
essential that staff provide priorities in their staff report, so we get the full benefit of staff's expertise and practice in this area, as well as taking into account the comments we've received from the public and practitioners. So I agree with that.
Okay.
Anybody else for agenda forecasting? If not, then I think we're done with agenda forecasting. We're on to something called adjournment, which